Thank you so much, Ijoma. I think we were talking about how we intend to impact the global care helix. And I did mention that the global care helix contains 4 main domains: academia, government departments, industry, and wider society. And I started talking about academia and what they do, academics and what they do, what they should be doing in academia. It's about research teaching excellence. But I said that that excellence actually has another 4 lenses that we can use to capture it. And that's research itself, integration of knowledge, applications, and teaching. I covered research, which is the primary business of academics. Then I talked about integration of knowledge. And I was saying that integration of knowledge is almost the most important amongst the 4 of them, because that is what gives you a better way, a better handle on problem solving. And I give an example that if we do not integrate knowledge, disciplines, practices, understandings to some extent, then we are not able to solve a problem properly, because most problems are multifaceted, they are multidisciplinary. But it doesn't mean that a single academic should start becoming an expert in everything, which is impossible. But it means that at least that academic should be both deep and broad, both specialist and generalist to some extent. Generalist in the sense of understanding connections among disciplines. If I'm a statistician, and I am one, I must have done a lot of mathematics, right from my BSc to master's to PhD. So I must always understand that some problems that I need to solve may not just lend themselves to statistics alone, that they also may require me to bring in some other mathematical, equations, if possible, depending on whether that is needed or not. Okay, and that can also happen, for instance, as I integrate, statistical modeling with business, science, having also studied business, in Manchester Business School after my doctorate. It's not that I have to be, maybe, I'm not saying that I want to be an expert in marketing, for instance. No, but I have broad enough understanding of business, how business is structured, how value is created. But my statistics would then join up to help me to create robust evidence bases for justifying or evidencing the superiority of the results I come up with, or how the products that I am analyzing that have been produced, or the offerings that have been, created, are adding more value or not adding value. Question of evidence, impact, excellence has to be substantiated based on data. So that's where analytics comes in, data analytics. But data analytics itself must be integrated with business science. And I tell you one big secret today. A lot of data scientists lose their jobs after about a year. And people don't know the reason for that. The reason for that is data science is just a technician's job to some extent. Whether you have a PhD in it is immaterial. Because actually data science is statistics, applied statistics. But calling it a new name and bringing in things, and at the end of the day, you don't understand how to even think about the problems you want to solve, how to structure a business, you're not a rainmaker. Because any guy that thinks better about how to structure problems, how to understand where value lies, you have to be reporting to him, no matter what amount of data science you're pushing. So that in data science, for instance, what we call insight development, it's all about understanding the way businesses and organizations work. That is knowledge integration for you. That's IOK. IOK has so many fingerprints in the world that I wonder, to be honest, why academics will choose to call themselves experts in a very tiny area of the world or knowledge that doesn't move anything, that doesn't shift the needle in the world. I'm really surprised. And this is why today, each time I talk about academia, I also regret that academics have been wrongly incentivized to be too specialist with their so-called areas of research interest. And without actually talking about how do those areas mobilize the creation of products and services and wealth and the enhancement of the joy and happiness of society. and individuals in society. I gave this simple example. So if I were to train a data scientist today, I will train a data scientist both in the technical techniques, in the tools of the area, which is, of course, statistics, of course, regression analytics, all these things we call data science, machine learning, neural networks, decision trees. Basically, a couple of years ago, they were called data mining. But they're actually statistics. IBM SPSS does a lot of it. Other statistical tools and software do it. R does it. So what people are coming up with is they hang on a kind of a buzz and start creating, a sense of wonder about something that statisticians have been doing since the past 100 years or more. So to me, what is important is how academics can learn to integrate knowledge. So how academics can integrate knowledge is important. I just gave you an example, how data scientists are not even able to keep their jobs, because it's statistics that they should know really, and then know business or know how to formulate problems and solve them. Okay, but I'm not trying to be too critical of them. Now, the other thing about I of K, which is important for me, is the ability for us to understand the interconnections among disciplines and to choose well which 2 or 3 disciplines we need to, work across somehow, even if we are based mainly in one. If somebody is doing sociology, is social policy too distant from it? No. Sociology should link to social policy automatically. So I wouldn't want somebody to tell me that I'm a professor of sociology. Okay, unless he means sociology, as a summary of what he does. Because sociology, therefore, but if he tells me sociology and social policy, I'm happy, more or less. Because I know explicitly he's telling me he's not trying to base himself on one discipline, which is what has held down developing countries for so many years now after independence. Okay, but that's a good example of that. So, but let's go to the next one, which is applications. How well do we apply knowledge? Well enough. After all, are we not, enjoying aeroplanes, houses built by, professionals that we are trained in universities? Are we not enjoying tools, cutlery built by people that came from understanding of how the world works? Okay, applications all over the place. However, what I think of applications today, based on a discipline, are not happening well enough in most parts of the world, especially developing countries. You train a first-class degree mathematician, you'll expect him to be able to solve some problems with mathematics or understand the nature of problems that he may use his mathematical experiences to solve. At BSc level, some of them are clueless, especially when they're trained in some parts of the world that are not already developed countries, where the pedagogy is a bit deeper or the environment is more enabling for the academic to do what is expected of him in order to demonstrate practice of mathematics to the students they teach. And therefore, you find mathematicians that have very top classes not finding jobs in those kind of countries. So these are actually, annoying circumstances, but it's certainly annoying, to be honest. So we need to do something more for that. And that is what the corporate academic model is about. How it is done is what we do. I'll give you a simple example. You come to some department in some universities in the world, especially developing countries, you meet academics who are saying they're running labs or research and consulting units about the ingredients for mobilizing knowledge production are not complete in those units. You find out that those units are simply vehicles through which the experienced academics can bring projects in, win some grants, but the depth of the problem solving does not really innovate the teaching itself. And therefore, there is a disconnect between what the academics do to be able to find some extra income and what the students learn from what they do. Hence, we are replacing today the concept of a traditional research and consulting unit in universities and polytechnics with what we call C4X, Centers for the Application of Every Discipline, which contains the 5 forces that we built or developed, which is about complete tooling for creating products and services or offerings from knowledge. It doesn't have to be physical objects, that's what I mean, depending on the discipline. So we are replacing that now. Therefore, universities can, or polytechnics or higher educational institutions can come and borrow a recipe, take the recipe from us, and we can facilitate, the incubation of those kind of centers. Because that is what is needed. So if you have a department, a university like University of Nigeria, for instance, let's say it has 100 departments. In principle, they should have 100 C4Eds. What it means is that if students go through this type of centers, they know the nooks and the crannies of how, for instance, you're training in, say, statistics or mathematics is really applied on projects. They are doing those projects with the academics who are already properly trained as corporate academics, who know how to do those things. And all of them are adept or masters of the 5 forces. And also the 7 E's, which will give them the extra soft skills they need. The laws of success, for instance, there are about 15 laws of success, 16 hallmarks of success, which are both of them almost related. There are 32 habits of highly creative people. There are 5 points for the future, as articulated by Gardner, I think 2008 or 2005. The synthesizing mind, the creative mind, the responsible mind, and the disciplined mind, and the ethical mind. How many students are taken through this type of things? Not many in my mind, to me. And this is what is the problem. This is what is causing developing countries not to be developed. Because you just cannot teach somebody a technical subject and give him a degree and call it BSc mathematics, BSc this and that, when the guy himself has not even understood how to use knowledge. And that is what we are trying to do. Applications is big, IOK is big, and we are playing it big as well. And the other thing is teaching itself, which is the 4th element. Teaching, to me, is the story of how these things are done. And that is why in our system, for instance, instead of the traditional academic standing before teachers in a 1-hour lecture and talking about what he knows and giving a little bit of exercises, pair good work, question and answer, what we normally call the 5 teaching formats, which 99% of academics use. That is a bit of lecture, question and answer, individual or pair group work, case study, a little bit of work on case study, extended project maybe outside or whatever. All these kind of things are repeatedly done. So you can just assume that in the scholarship of teaching, academics are mainly using 5 standard approaches. Mainly, I said, I have to make exception that there are others who can use far more than that. But to me today, there are about 20 signature pedagogies in the world. If academics are using 5 of them and 15 of them are lost to them, I don't understand the nature of students they produce. They can never train rainmakers. That's why the rainmakers are trained when they go out to work in the places like Goldman Sachs, for example. Investment banks, government departments. They start being trained as if they were not trained before, more or less. We are changing that game today. These guys must come out and be spirit beings, guys who can do things. Because the nature of the centers for the application of every discipline is extremely deep. It's nowhere in the world today, especially in developing countries. But in the terms of the teaching that can galvanize that level of understanding is what we call, the corporate academic way of teaching. It is actually called reverse pedagogy. But in this week's, social media articles we released, I gave a big section to reverse pedagogy. And I will just explain it briefly. The standard way an academy teaches most of the time is to come up and do this 5 teaching formats thing, and then give homework to students or meet them in tutorial and just do a few problem solving, job done. In that teaching, the way it's enacted is they talk about what they know, concepts. They're always on the stage sometimes talking about concepts and things like that. And students are imbibing it as if they are soaking, up every word that the academic says. In most developing countries, it's about copying the notes of the lecturer because the lecturer requests those notes back in examinations. And therefore, it's like rote learning. At the end of the day, they get all their degrees. They can't do anything with it. But the correct way to teach is not to teach, if I can say it. Meaning, if you take a topic, all you need to do, motivate students about the research, the integration of knowledge and the applications around the problem that is cogent, problem-based learning in a different way, deeper way. So you are not talking actually anything. Once you motivate them, set them and are doing things together, you are going around, you don't talk much. The teaching is only 15% of the 1 hour because the students are engaged doing stuff. So you are bringing teaching only at the end. That's why I call it reverse pedagogy. You have to do the research first, show them the research, show them the IOK, show them the what? The applications. And they're working on these things. Their brains are kinesthetically, bombarding reality. And then at the end of the day, you just come and just do a nice plenary, bringing it together and say, hey, what did you find out? So the whole thing is what the students found out. It's student-led. It's not necessarily teacher-led. You're not a sage on the stage, but you are a guide by the side. T is only coming at the end, mostly. I call reverse pedagogy. That is the pedagogy that is used in training superstars in football, the likes of Messi. Of course, they call it deliberate practice. Deliberate practice. That's what they call it in football academies. That is the same that is used to train musical stars, the Madonnas of the world, tennis star. What stops us using it to train academic stars, who we call corporate academics? Are you getting my point? So there's a lot of lack in the way we teach. We don't even understand all the pedagogies that matter. That is why we don't train people who can do stuff easily. They have to go to companies and start learning again. Why they should have been doing those stuff right from the department from almost first year, second year, up to final year, master's, PhD. Have I done enough justice on this? But in terms of finally answering your question on this, is that I've only stopped with academic. What of industry sectors? We have plans. There are 19 industry sectors in the world, approximately. If you want to know them, just go to the business section of the Times UK. You see them listed there. Every single day. They start with automobiles and parts. They contain consumer goods, retail, telecommunications, everything there. Banking and financial services. Every academic in the world that wants to impact you in teaching their disciplines must understand which of these sectors have affinity with their disciplines and draw case studies from them for the student. How many of them do it in developing countries? They don't. They don't do it well enough. Some don't even do it at all because it's the same notes they have that are given to students year in, year out. So industry sectors, understanding how industry sectors benefit from different disciplines is very important. And each academic must say, this is my understanding of it. Out of these 19 industry sectors, these are the 2 or 3 that mainly my techniques or what we are teaching can then enable students to understand that. So that at least they have an understanding where they can end up if they want to insist on using that disciplinary knowledge for their careers, because some of them may do some other thing else anyway. And then we talk about wider society. That is to enable an academic to say, okay, beyond these 3 ones, academia, government departments, industry, let me talk of wider society. I've not even talked about government departments, but let me talk of wider society. That's about communities, towns, villages, so that if you're a corporate academic, you must actually be thinking about how do I impact the society where I am? How do I impact the city in which my university is based, for instance? Are there problems in those environs that my discipline can help to solve, or a combination of disciplines can help to solve something like that. Let me go to government departments. Government departments are key because government actually has a kind of control on the resources of a country. Therefore, you must understand how to help the government departments to be successful. And if you think about departments like, trade and industry, education, and so on, so many of them. In Nigeria, last time I looked up, there were about 56 ministries in the country involving science and technology, education, finance, so many of them, telecommunication, and things like that. So you now find out that government needs to be helped with knowledge that we produce in academia in order to do what? for those departments to say. Most of the things that they need is something like customer service excellence, for instance, modeling, using models to improve performance, for instance, and so on and so forth. So every academy must think about, which the government departments can I really support with my knowledge? Or can I mobilize a consortium of academics to solve? So you don't get the money from those as funded into your departments, but you must give them a genuine solution to the problem. I want to talk a little bit about how do academics choose, or can they choose the best problems to work on that can have the maximum impact in society? These are questions that they don't normally ask because they just do their publishing, their teaching, they get promoted every 3 years in some countries, they hit the top, sometimes they stop working. I just talk about what is called the sweet pot principle. The sweet pot principle is about, can I identify problems that millions and billions of people can actually benefit from or are facing, or challenges that is so pervasive that if I create a solution for this, there will be a lot of buy-in into those solutions. That's number one element of that. The next one is, can I identify existing solutions, if any, and understand the trade-offs, the benefits and advantages and disadvantages of those products, the gaps in the way they fill user needs, and therefore, can I create a product that can do better than existing one? Finally, do I have the ability to generate evidence, comparative evidence, that can demonstrate how the solutions I have created meet the needs of users better? Something like that. That is what I call the RIAT DD80 edge. That is the edge. Do I have an edge in creating better products and services, better offerings, using knowledge from the 4 areas of higher education, research, integration of knowledge, application and teaching, and using technologies that actually are data-driven, covering the 4 main things like digital, data, and technology. If I can answer that question, instead of wasting my time solving problems that are not really big problems, I can home in on problems that can help the world better. Every academic that is trained by us to become global corporate academics must master these principles. This is why they are rainmakers. This is why they can change systems easily. But they are thinkers, they are deep thinkers, and they are sufficiently multidisciplinary doing that. Now that I've explained to you the mechanics of how we can do this, what about reaching out to who can do it with us? We have what is called the 8-point agenda. The massive agenda is being rolled out as we speak, is to connect the entire global cure helix by talking about what we can do for each of those entities, many of them, the 196 countries that are United Nations registered companies. Countries in different kinds of places in the world. If you take a country, in Sub-Saharan Africa, the 54 countries in Africa, you reach them, understand what their needs are, start to find solutions from research, from RIAT. Use that edge to create solutions for them. Talk to them. You don't need to get replies immediately. Tell them what you can do for them. Don't sit down in the classroom and hoping that they'll come and tell you and say, come and solve this problem for me. That only happens when in the medical field, when people go to doctors. This time you have to go to those places. Write them. Tell them what you can do. Tell them you understand the problems. Study the problems. Study their budgets even, because even from their budgets, you know what their problems lie. If it's individuals, understand their pain points, their needs. That is why you need to understand user research, which is part of the 5 forces. If you do this, in 10 years, you can lift an entire continent out of poverty. I wonder why it has not been done up to today. Because of the dubious incentivization. So the 8-point agenda says it all. It's like fishing out every human being in the world that has a problem, if we can. That is theoretically speaking. We can't fish out everybody. Well, we can fish out their countries. We can fish out their zones, their states, their towns, and say, we can do this for you. So that's the thing. Starting with academia, which is our members, universities, secondary schools, colleges, support them, train them, add to what they have. You're not trying to tell them, oh, what you're doing is rubbish. No, I'm not saying that. Complement their game. So that is how I can answer this question.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Just one last question, and that'll be all for this section. In order to achieve the Oselux vision, what is the nature of activities you undertake, and why are those activities world leading?
Okay, so this question you're asking me has two perspectives.
Yes.
Idea of the kind of activities we engage in, and then why those activities are potentially, even currently and then potentially world leading. Yes, of course, I can easily do that. Let's take in terms of activities. We break it down into the RIAT structure. The RIAT Ensemble is RIAT, as I talked about. The research. There is research activities. We are training PhD techs as we speak. Those spirit beings that are not stopping at the traditional PhDs that are done in the universities all over. No. These are PhD techs. These are guys that combine traditional PhD know-how with the technologies for catalyzing platforms and building things from those places. All the students I supervised in the last few years are PhD techs. So at the back of their thesis or in an appendix, they must tell us in about 10, 4, 5, depending on the number of the nature of their work, 2 to 10 pages about how they are going to use the results of the thesis to do something. And because we've shown them the global cure helix and trained them in the understanding how they can now be specific about where they want to start adding value. Of course, it can evolve and they can do more after that. Okay? That's one of the activities we do today. And that is done happening under one of the platforms called Glottrace, the one I've talked about before. But also, as I said, we are now rolling out C4X. In our partner universities now, we are now, we built a center in Nigeria, an international center for research and human development. We are incubating C4X within it to cover Nigeria, to help Nigeria, for instance. And of course, we can use it in partnership with other countries to help them to introduce C4X. So if there are 54 countries in Africa, you can imagine the amount of work that involves. And of course, other developing countries and globally. UK, for instance. We can work with universities in UK to structure C4X for them, to ensure that while they're already one of the world's most recognized leading higher education countries, that they can even keep improving their game. Is that okay? Right? Good.
Yes, sir.
And then, of course, other activities involve what we do at different levels in different platforms. In the 7E Masters platform, that is the one for teaching secondary schools, we have introduced a better way of teaching students that they can retain the knowledge and be able to understand it and excel in exams. And that is the accelerated learning using the mastermind. And then, of course, in the new platform that is coming up, which is 7E Professors, because we've been in academia for so many years, we've seen all the gaps in the provisioning there. And therefore, the teaching of some disciplines, leave a lot to be desired. So we are fixing that. So people can come in and take tutorials in history, take tutorials in mathematics, engineering mathematics, economics, microeconomics, finance, empirical finance, whatever area, at all levels from BSc to PhD and masters. So this is another activity. Of course, the other one is mainly the skills, cascading skills, those kind of skills we talk about, 7E skills. That is big. That is happening in the platform called the Skills for Students and Graduates and Startups, SSGS Academy. That academy is on almost all social platforms, social media platforms. LinkedIn is also there. Okay, and that academy is also now being linked to some universities. So what is happening is this, we run it online. We built a website for it, and universities and higher education institutions can key into it for the training of their students. There are certified courses that we provided at intermediate, foundation, and advanced levels for these levels of skills. There are also fellowships that can be organized for senior academics or senior players in these skill sets. For instance, in strategic leadership, based on the 5 forces. That is the very first time in the world that kind of training will be given. I don't think it's anywhere in the world. I've looked at all over. It's not there. We don't have 5 forces trained professionals. We don't have it. So these are things we are developing, you know. And then we have fellowships in global corporate academicism itself, you know. We have created a profession of global corporate academics, and then platform global corporate, the ones that have platforms, understand the way platforms work, marketplaces, the economics of platforms. They'll be soaked in it, but they'll understand the 5 forces and 7 E's. They will be rainmakers wherever they are in the world, and so on and so forth. There are so many things there, activities, of course. In the ICRED, the International Center for Research and Enterprise Development, everything comes in there, one way or the other, because ICRED is mutating as a global university. Will be launched, you know, not far away from now. Talking about 5 years maximum is over. But you can see a university that does the normal thing universities do, but soaks everybody that passes through it in the 5 forces and 7 E's. Because of that kind of university, it has to be a graduate university. So it's going to be a graduate university. It's going to be an open university online. But universities all over the world and communities and countries can link into it for training all manner of people in different careers and things like that. Because of the fundamental nature of the 5 forces and the 7 E's. I will end to some extent by using an imagery to explain why those 5 forces and 7 E's are that powerful. In theoretical physics, we have what is called the eightfold way, okay? If you read Gell-Mann and Einstein and some of these modern physics, actually, you understand that the entire paraphernalia of physics, I mean the small physics I'm talking about, not rests mainly on what is called the eightfold way. It is the arrangement of particles that enables every other thing to be created. That's the simplest way I can put it. I posit today that the way we develop the 5 forces and 7 E's, they actually act like the eightfold way in modern academia. And as a matter of fact, we have another concept called the 7-fold ways, which is still enfolded within the 5 forces. And these are the specific 7 areas where academics can add value. Don't be disappointed to learn today that most academics add value with only about 3 of them. What about the 4? Because they are not incentivized to do more than they're currently doing. Have training programs running right through the year. We have 10 flagship international conferences and specialist workshops. Again, we are showcasing some of these models and systems in that. We pour it all where people can. These are also repeated year in, right across the year in order to make enough people to get this. The aim is to train these people, enough people to form a critical power, critical mass of change agents, global corporate academics that can get into a country, get into institutions, and transform and democratize them in line with the Oselux vision. And that is where I finally will end it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir, for telling us more about Oselux Global Education and sharing your insights with us. It has been an absolute pleasure. Your expertise and passion truly shine through. And to our audience, thank you for watching, and for questions, kindly put it in the comment section. We hope you find this interview enlightening and thought-provoking. Remember to follow us on all our social media for updates on upcoming videos and exciting content. That concludes our interview. Stay tuned for more inspiring conversations, and until next time, take care and stay curious.